Okay, I think we'll get going. It's 10:03 by my clock. First of all, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional territories of the Saanich people, comprising the Sault, Sartlip, Sakim, Pequotchin, and Malahat First Nations, who have lived on and stewarded the Saanich Peninsula since time immemorial. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. It's been circulated. Can I have a motion to approve it? Councillor Batista.
Agenda?
Oh, that's right, yeah. Sorry, Councillor Batista. I forgot that we're moving item number 8 up after 4A, so it'll be, I guess we'll call it 5 and move the other ones down.
It'll still be the same.
Okay.
So what is it, 8A?
8A, because the people who are presenting would like to leave after the presentation.
Okay.
Okay, I may entertain a motion to approve the agenda as, what have I done now?
Oh, you're doing great. I think.
Oh, wait, okay, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Steve, so yes.
Oh, I just wanted to add to the agenda, looking for and discussing the accessible parking zoning bylaw at North Saanich, just to kind of give a background and looking for an update on that.
Do we make that?
Should we just put it in after the
AG?
Wain Road?
Yes, we'll make it item 8G.
Now we're good. Seeing no more changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Colleen or Charlene, I mean. Seconder. All in favor? Carried. Approval of the minutes. I did note one spelling error that changes the meaning a little bit, so I'll mention that in 22C. The word accessibly is noted in 2 places, and it should be in both cases accessibility. Just make those 2 changes. Any other modifications? I got it down.
Just some comments, and I've had a bit of a discussion with staff on this already, but some of the feedback that I've been getting on minutes from Mayor, CAO, and others is that it needs the recommendations or the motions that we're putting forward need to be clear so they can understand what it is we're kind of. So instead of saying in the minutes, feedback was given to Central Saanich on this active transportation plan or whatever it is, that the following feedback was provided, and then just in bullets so that, council can see what it is the feedback that's provided. And then also similarly in the motions need to be clear. So one of the motions that was problematic, it was, I think we made a motion about discussion of that municipalities would discuss accessibility concerns with the airport. And so the question I got back was, well, what were the concerns? I said, oh, I think there was something about this or that, but I had to go replay the meeting again. So anyways, that's just kind of
Yeah, I totally agree. Even by the time I get the minutes, I can't remember the specifics.
yeah. So just for us to be mindful when we're making the motions and making our points, so that's clear.
Okay. And I'll make sure I review them because I get them first.
Okay.
I'll review them with that in mind too. Good comment. Oh, morning. Sorry, I'm late. Hey, you're right on time. Any other comments? So entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
Second.
Steve and Charlene. All in favor? Against, if any? Carried. Okay, the next item will then be the Right Fit program. presentation, I believe. Are they prepared? Is Lindsay with us?
Hello.
Oh, hi,
Can you hear
Lindsay.
me? Hello.
That was good.
Hi. Yeah, my program manager, I think, is running a minute or two late, but I can go ahead and get started to just make sure you guys are on track for your meeting. Oh, there she is. Perfect timing. Hi, Isabel. We're just about to get started on our presentation now.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Should I go ahead and share my screen?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Ramsey?
I can't see the, oh, there we are. Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. We're very excited to be here. Thank you for welcome. Oh, somebody waiting in the lobby. Okay, got a little notification there. We're very excited to be here and present the Right Fit program. So thank you for making space in your agenda for us. So you can go to the next slide, Lindsay.
Oops.
Yeah, we'll do a really quick introduction slide back.
Oh, yeah, I think, sorry, it might be lagging a bit. Is it
Okay,
back
that's
on?
no worries. Yes, okay. Yes, so my name is Isabel Grock. I'm the Right Fit Program Manager for Disability Alliance BC, and I'm excited to be joined by Lindsay Simpson, who's the CRD Housing Coordinator for DABC for the Right Fit. So we're pretty very happy to be here with you today. I just want to give you a bit of overview of Disability Alliance BC. I don't know how much you know about DABC here, but we're a provincial cross-disability voice since 1977, so we've been around for a long time. And our organization supports people with all disabilities to live with dignity, independence, and as equal and full participants in the community. DABC offers a really wide range of programs, so I won't go through that list extensively because we have a limited time. But we support people with disabilities with a number of programs, tax aid. We have a disability law clinic that provides free legal advice to people with disabilities. We have an advocacy access program which supports people with disabilities with their PWD applications. We have a program also that supports people with disability to access the DTC, Disability Tax Credit. And we also manage the Right Fit program, which is the program that brings us here today. Next, yeah. Okay, so what is the Right Fit? The Right Fit is a service that addresses the crisis in accessible housing, and we address this crisis by matching affordable, accessible homes and independent living supports with people who need it in the Lower Mainland and now in the CRD. We have several goals with this program. We were created in 2017, so we've been around almost for 10 years. We wanted to better utilize the existing supply to make sure that every accessible units go to people who really need those units. We wanted to inventory every available unit to make sure that it's truly accessible, but also to get a better understanding of what's available out there. Increase housing affordability, address the supply gap, and also raise awareness about housing accessibility. So why did we decide to form the Right Fit program about almost 10 years ago? That's because we had come to an understanding that wheelchair users were facing incredible challenges when it came to finding and securing accessible housing. First of all, there's a limited supplies, not many accessible, affordable housing being available for wheelchair users. And then it's a time it takes. So as you know, when you're moving into a unit, it's quite complex. But when you think about a wheelchair users wanting to move into an accessible housing unit, that's even more complicated. You have to have time to arrange home supports, specialized equipment. So what hasn't meant is that generally when is a scarce accessible unit being available, then a wheelchair user would not be able to compete and get this unit just because of the time it takes. So being able to get the unit was not possible. And what that means is that those where accessible units are going to people who don't need those accessible features. The other added challenge with this, with the wheelchair users accessible housing is that up to the Right Fit, until the Right Fit was created, there was no centralized inventory of accessible units for listing accessibility features. So that meant that the units are there, but nobody really knows where they are, what those units are, and what kind of features they have. So the Right Fit really looked to address this issue by creating that centralized inventory of accessible units. Next slide, please. So the Right Fit is very much a partnership model. So we started out in Metro Vancouver 10 years ago, and DABC oversees and manages the Right Fit program, but we're guided for Metro Vancouver by a steering committee that provides leadership and expertise to everything we do. So we have a number of member organizations that includes BC Housing, MSDPR, the health authorities, the City of Vancouver, Spinal Cord Injury BC, SPAAC BC, and VRS, which is a housing provider. And because we're now expanding into the Capital Regional District, we're currently forming an advisory committee for the CRD to help ensure that we understand and respond to the unique needs of the region. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the Right Fit in the CRD, what does that look like? In Metro Vancouver, the DABC has been partnering with a group called the Individualized Funding Resource Center Society, what we call the IFRC. The IFRC is an organization that's led by people with disabilities, and they in the Vancouver region, they manage the aspect of the peer-led navigation model, then client intakes and housing placement. I will go back to that, what that intake process and peer-led navigation model looks like. But then the CRD, we're very proud to have initiated a partnership with the Victoria Disability Resource Center, VDRC. And VDRC will help connect the Right Fit program with community resources, housing providers, wheelchair users, and will also help strengthen some of our local referral pathways to support our peer-led navigation model. And the VDRC will also co-chair our advisory committee in the CRD. I should also mention that Lindsay, our CRD housing coordinator, her office is housed within the office of VDRC. Next slide, please. This is just a bit of a history of our program. I don't need to go in great detail into this, but we started in, as I mentioned, almost 10 years ago in 2017. We started as a pilot project to really test the approach of what we wanted to do. And then in 2020, we transitioned from being a pilot to being the Right Fit program. And since then, we have really become the one-stop hub for housing providers, tenants, service providers, everything accessible housing related. I must say that there was a research study that was done a couple of years ago in Ontario by a university there, and they surveyed and really took a scan of all services existing for accessible housing in Canada, and they identified that the Right Fit program was the only program in Canada that does what we do. So we're very proud of being the model and the reference, but at the same time have mixed feelings about the fact that there's no other program like ours in the rest of the country. We also now maintain the only existing centralized inventory of accessible units in the Lower Mainland with a standardized accessibility checklist tool. I will come back to that. And then I guess our next chapter is 2026. We're now expanding beyond Metro Vancouver and expanding into the Capital Regional District. So everything that we've done in Metro Vancouver, we're looking to replicate in the CRD, including the development of an inventory of accessible and adaptable housing for the CRD. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I just wanted to talk about our approach, the Right Fit approach, because it's quite unique because we operate both on the supply side and the demand side. So we match, our main goal is to match accessible homes with the right tenants. And this is what we call the Right Fit. We're ensuring the right fit for each unit. We help wheelchair users find homes that meet their accessibility needs. And what I like to say about that is that each unit that we find is different. They may not have all full accessibility features. Some of the units might be adaptable, universal design. Well, we take a look at all of these units. We don't just look at fully accessible units, just because you never know what will be the right fit. Our clients, they might all be wheelchair users, but they have very diverse needs. So we want to make sure we have a broad supply of units to be able to match our clients to those units. So we also help streamline access to home support services and equipment. We provide personalized support from intake to move in with our dedicated client navigators. And we build and maintain that inventory of accessible housing with our checklist. And we'll go back to that. Next slide, please. Our eligibility criteria in terms of as a client to come into our programs. So applicants for now must be full-time power or manual wheelchair users, including using their chair at home. We're in the midst of slightly revising those criteria, but this for now are our criteria. And applicants must live in Vancouver Health, Fraser Health, or now Island Health Authorities. So the full CRD geographical scope. So the 30 municipalities as well as the 3 EAs, electoral areas. We have no age restrictions. We have no income limit or income requirement, and PWD eligibility is not required for our program. As I mentioned, we have developed over the years a very unique peer-to-peer navigation model. We feel it's very important to provide peer-to-peer support for a person with disability. And the reason for that is the journey to transition into stable, affordable, accessible housing is very complex, and there's a lot of challenges. So we want to make sure we build trust with our clients and learn about this individual situation so we can successfully help wheelchair users living in non-accessible housing make a successful transition into accessible housing. So we help individuals identify where they want to live, the amenities that are important to them, the social networks, the kind of neighborhoods they want, but also we're going to be learning about their specific disabilities, because as I mentioned, even though they may all be wheelchair users, they have very different needs and mobility range. So it's important for us to capture that. So one of the clientele we're serving, where we have in Vancouver at least a large number of families, so where the wheelchair user is a child, a young child. So the supporting individuals are not wheelchair users. So when we look at placing these specific clients into units, they may not require the full range of accessible features, but they might prioritize certain features and the size of the units over the accessibility features. This is why it's so important to have a variety of units to in our inventory to be able to match our clients. Next slide, please. So a little bit more on that navigation model. We assist wheelchair users in completing application forms and navigating BC housing applications and all this complicated paperwork that they have to go through. We review these available units that we have in our inventory, and we match applicants with homes that suits their specific accessibility needs. We'll help them gather required documents for housing providers. We accompany clients through housing interviews, and we provide support to the client from the initial intake to the final move-in. We also help facilitate home supports in securing traditional home supports, and we also refer clients to what we call the CESL program, Choices in Support for Independent Living program through the IFRC. And we also help with equipment support. So often wheelchair users will need electric beds, grab bars, some track ceiling lifts, so all sorts of specific equipment needs. And so in that they need to have in place when they move in, which is why before they couldn't access accessible units, because the time it takes to get everything aligned at the same time. So we help with fast tracking with those processes, and we also help facilitate installation of environmental controls as well as door openers as well. So a number of additional assistive technology. So what have we accomplished so far? So we've been in existence since 2017. So we've updated those numbers. Sorry, there was a note there, but we made 214 successful housing matches since we existed. These are the Lower Mainland numbers. And we will hope we're just starting now in the CRD. So we'll be starting matching clients and finding accessible housing now. And what I will just say on this slide is that we're very proud to have made that many matches so far. But we also have prevented a significant numbers of individuals from becoming homeless. So homeless prevention is very much a focus of our work. And so we really are very proactive and work with the homelessness sector to really support individuals that are at imminent risk of homeless or being homeless to transition into accessible housing. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so
and now I'm going to pass it on
Yes.
to Lindsay, who's going to tell you a bit more about what we do on the housing provider side. Thank you.
Yeah, so in addition to supporting the clients, we also support local housing providers. So we work directly with housing providers to help identify suitable tenants for them by comparing their accessible unit against our client intake, which allows us to simplify the matching process for them and take a little bit of work off their hands. So when a housing provider reaches out to us, or we reach out to them and they mention that they have an accessible unit, we'll coordinate completing our DAPC accessibility checklist and maintain an inventory of those units. So we overall serve as a resource for housing providers by both helping them learn a little bit more about accessibility through our checklist, and then also helping them find the right tenant for them and support them through the process of that tenant application. So I'll go a little bit into our checklist, but the ultimate goal is to better understand the supply and create a more detailed inventory of the accessible unit supply. So when we go to a unit that may look like the one in this picture, we create a detailed account of the unit. So we'll measure the turning radius and counter heights, the space for kitchen knee cutouts under kitchen sinks and stoves, where outlets are located. We'll also list the building amenities and neighborhood amenities, and then also track more standard apartment things such as pet policies and smoking policies. And then, so the checklist ultimately, provides a detailed account of the unit and its accessibility features. And then we can go through our client database and find the right fit client for that unit, because we have detailed intake of both the unit and the client. And then once we have identified a match, we will pass the client information to the housing provider, because that allows them to retain full control over selecting their tenant and still giving them agency in doing that as well, but we do still support through the application process. And overall, the checklist acts as a tool for improving accessibility. I've already found from doing a few of these checklists in the CRD, completing the checklist allows myself and the housing provider to have a more detailed conversation about accessibility. And I learn things based on their experience, and they learn things based on our experience. And I think it just creates a good conversation around what true accessibility looks like within an apartment or a home. And yeah, we can also work with them to adapt and modify units. And then hopefully, like in the Lower Mainland, the CRD, we can create a centralized inventory of accessible units for wheelchair users. And I'll pass it back to Isabel.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, so overall, really, I mean, the Right Fit program is very much a multi-dimensional program, but we're also looking to really build knowledge on accessible housing. There's so much different definitions out there, and it's an evolving conversation. So we feel that beyond matching clients to accessible units, we feel it's within our mandate to educate stakeholders on the importance of accessible housing, inclusive design, and the impact. We also want to build awareness and partnerships by really showcasing the program's benefits and encouraging collaboration around the housing sector, promote accessible housing solutions, and also gain insights to inform program improvements. Next. I should mention as well that we, as part of our learning and sharing what we the work we do and the gaps in accessible housing and informing that conversation, we undertake a survey of our place clients. So after a client is placed, after 6 months mark, we will go in and visit them into the home where we've placed them, and we will do an in-person survey about the impact of the program, but also we will look at better understanding whether what has changed in their lives after they've been placed. So has their physical health improved? Has their sense of independence improved? Has their community integration better? So we're looking at those key quality of life indicators, but we're also looking at how well the unit we've been placed them into is doing. Are they able to now navigate their new home safely, or do they still have some challenges, and what are those challenges? And that is incredibly useful information for us, because that ultimately will allow us to take that back to the housing sector and planning departments and just say, hey, we find that all new buildings, accessible units within those buildings, they half of those don't have door openers, and we see that as a gap, for example. So we can make further recommendations on to how to improve accessibility features within those units and the buildings where we place wheelchair users. Next slide. Yes, so I mean, that was a bit of a really short version there of everything we do. There's a lot more. So what I want to say, though, is that we're very excited to finally be expanding into the CRD. We know there's a huge need there, and we're really looking forward to working with you all in terms of building our inventory of accessible and adaptable units, connecting with organizations, and overall really forming local relationships and partnerships to really support wheelchair users transition into units that meet their needs. So you have our contact information there. If you want to learn more, we have a website and social media. We're in the process of updating our website now with all the information about what we're doing in the CRD. So I'll stop here, and if you have questions for us, we love to have a conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Presentation. We're thrilled that you've come across the pond to Vancouver Island. That's great. Any questions from committee members? Councillor O'Keefe?
Yes. Councillor Terry O'Keefe, thank you for the presentation. I'm really excited that you're here on the island. I had talked to the folks running your program in Vancouver a couple years ago, and I think we had a discussion at this committee about that and how we could get an inventory. So great to have you here. What I'm wondering is, so in town of Sidney, anyways, I'm not sure about other municipalities, we require developers of new buildings to make 20% of the units adaptable. And the thing that I've kind of struggled with is that they make these adaptable, but as you said, I don't think very many of them go to people who actually need them. So how have you had any discussion or any ideas about how we would be, whether it would be you or the town communicating with the builders of these new units to get them into your inventory? Any ideas how you might see that working?
It's such a great question. And I do remember us connecting 2 or 3 years ago and having these conversations. Yeah, it was with me. So I'm really thrilled actually to pursue this conversation because we had such a productive conversation, and you had shared back then with us that, you know, exactly what you just said, the challenge of having these units being built, but having no handle over what's happening after they're being built. Are they actually going to the people who need them the most? And this is really a gap that I've identified. It's true of the Lower Mainland as well, is that, you know, we have these great units that are coming onto the market now, but we have no way of knowing whether those units are going to the people who need them. And as a result, you sort of, if they don't, you're sort of self-perpetuating the problem there, because our wait lists of people waiting for accessible units continue to grow, and the accessible units are being built, but they invariably goes to people who just don't need those features. And sadly, once they're in the unit, they will actually they will convert those features into something that fit their needs that have nothing to do with accessibility. So the way to address that, I mean, of course, I mean, our advocacy part is to really would be great to require more accountability on the post-occupancy, on the occupancy of these units, so that it goes to the people who need that, you know, so there's some bit of accountability on how these units are being filled. But the best way is to work with these housing providers or developers and get them to connect with us, really. And I don't know, I mean, in terms of requirements and whether you're able to require them to do this, but the ideal scenario is that they reach out to the right fit and say, okay, we have all these units, can you help us fill them with people who need those units? And we'll do that. We'll do the matching. I mean, we'll help with that. Or we can, you can give us a list as well of these units and who build them, and we can contact the developers, the housing providers ourselves. And Lindsay will do that. She'll go and visit the units. She'll take notes of all the accessibility feature or adaptable features that'll make it to our inventory, and then we can start the process of matching. So either way, it can be initiated by the housing providers themselves, or if you give them all the lists, we can initiate contacts ourselves with the housing providers.
Have you had any discussions with the real estate associations or of the urban development institution or institute, which, you know, represents developers or people selling or these kind of units, or rental agencies, to, you know, have some sort of designation on the listings for accessibility? Is that something that's being considered?
Yes, we have had, we've reached out to the UDI, I think, is it? Yeah, or and then the real estate association. We're in the rental market more than units that are meant to be sold. But okay, certainly we support renters. Rather than people who are looking to purchase units. But yes, we've had this conversation. That's part of the outreach. So in Vancouver, we have an accessible housing coordinator, and she'll contact all the groups, including the co-ops as well, association. We actually did a presentation in the CRD with a co-op, a group, a number of members of co-ops as well, to let them know about our program. So we'll really encourage all these players, the developers, the housing providers, the nonprofit association of housing providers, all of these to connect with us and let us know about the units they have, so we can
Okay.
educate them about that. Yeah,
That's great.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And I presume property management companies would be part of that list.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're really looking to build those connections in the CRD, because this is what we've done in the Lower Mainland, but in the CRD we're just building that. So it will be fantastic if offline Lindsay can have a further conversation with you on how you can facilitate those contacts with those developers that are required to build those 20% of adaptable units. So we get our hands on this unit and can follow through.
Councillor Newton, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think you might have answered my question with that last comment, but I guess when the applications come forward to the municipalities, how is it, like, obviously they're identified in the building plans when it comes forward for the application, but is there a flag or something to follow through to that follow-up about which specific units have the features that are required, and how is that related? Like, I'm super excited about this inventory coming on stream for the CRD, and I know Councillor O'Keefe talked about this before, but I guess how is the follow through about once communities require accessible or adaptable units? How are they identified, and does that then get to you for that information purposes?
Yeah. Well, so I guess what you're describing is that when you're doing the application review, if I understand you correctly, you review this application and then you ask those developers to say 20% of these units need to be adaptable, right? So is that what you're doing?
Correct.
And then okay. So what's your process? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm answering your question by asking you a question, but what happens from that point? Do you just they say, okay, yeah, we'll be the 20%. Do you have any kind of follow-up, or you have nothing at that point, or you just, what happens on your end of things?
Sure, that's probably a gap. I think I'm going to throw our director of planning on the spot here and give him a moment to collect his thought. But I should have identified it's for with the district of Central Saanich, and our requirements are a bit different than Sidney's, but we still do have some. So I guess I'd be curious about how going forward to identify the specific units within an application to come forward. And then my follow-up question is around the changes to the BC Building Code. Does that improve things to make all of them accessible or adaptable or not? But the first question is just how to identify once the units are prescribed. Where's the follow through to identify them to the public?
Yeah. Well, this is the gap would be exactly trying to address in the Lower Mainland, is that there is this allocated number of units, and then what we want to do is really get in touch early on with the developer, and then know, okay, and get in touch with them directly, and then let us know, okay, we have these 20 units coming up. Will you help them fill them with wheelchair users, essentially? So we're getting some lists from municipalities, essentially the individual municipalities. They let us know, okay, we know we have this developer, we have this building coming up, this new building, we have allocated that many units, and then they pass on the information for the contact person, essentially, and then we follow up directly with the housing representative there, and then ask them about their available units, and then we visit them. Sometimes they're still under construction somehow, and then that's when those units make it to our inventory. So we're the ones trying to to get a handle of those actual units, know which buildings they are, know the square footage, how many, and then get this information all collected in our inventory so that we can match essentially those units to people who need them. So essentially it will it'll come, but it has to be a collaboration. So that's why we're doing exactly this presentation today, is with the hope that we can work together, and Lindsay will follow up, but you can help us identify these projects essentially early on, so we can make that happen.
Okay, so then the follow-up, and I'm going to now go to the Director of Planning for Central Saanich and say, is there a way to liaise with an organization like this about once we get the application come forward and say we've got, 32 units or 11 units or whatever it happens to be, to share that information with as part of sort of building the inventory?
Exactly. Yeah.
So there is certainly, that would be, we could build that into our application sort of completion mechanism. One thing we do is we share something with the CRD. We share a lot of housing data, all the CRD. So a CRD could potentially be an avenue if every municipality has a similar structure that they do set that municipalities as housing accessible and tackling. The thought occurred to me as we're having this conversation. So every municipality in the province is right now required housing information to the province. You have to do your housing targets and reporting that every year. Our reports from the council next week. That would be an ideal avenue if the province wanted to take a role. But take a role, and that being a component of that report, how many accessible units in easy for municipalities. But that's the entire province for this. It's not on their radar. It's not something they collect. They collect affordable housing, supportive housing, number of rental units, number of units overall. I guess the level of bedrooms, but it doesn't touch on adaptability or accessibility, and that could easily be added and province wide and very accessible. But that's just that thought. It's not in place. So I think there would need to be quite a bit of work done individually. I think the challenge of doing it individually, though, is it's ad hoc. And I guess it is ad hoc. There's no requirement for municipalities to report that information right now. So the province could put that in place. And secondly, every municipality could report it differently. Some could do it, some couldn't. So you could see it be really challenging to be comprehensive on it. You might get some municipalities doing it, some not. So that's a challenge.
Sure, that seems to be something that could be advocated at UBCM or something like that. But in the meantime, for the local governments and certainly the great work that's being done on the peninsula, it would be relatively easy to share that information. And I think your point to the CRD is, and we have a representative here about that. So to collect that data centrally and try to minimize, maybe all of the work that's done locally, but to coordinate that centrally, at least from the CRD perspective, if this is also a CRD initiative, that makes the most.
Yeah, we are working or in communication with the CRD at the moment too, to do a similar presentation at their next AAC meeting, which I believe is in the fall. So maybe I'll just make a note to sort of circle back to that idea when we do get the chance to speak with their committee.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, you were cutting out on that previous point, so I didn't get the full gist, but I think there's a point there for systematic advocacy there, for sure, for having these requirements. Right now, we really very much rely on these local collaborations, so for Vancouver, for the Metro Vancouver, we go to the City of Vancouver, we have a partnership where they will give us the access to this information. And so we collect the data, we meet with the housing providers, we visit the units, and we have this inventory. Same, we go that for each municipality, Richmond, Coquitlam, and all of this. So it's really at those individual municipality level, and there's no requirements, but it's much needed to have something more comprehensive, consistent, and I think province-wide for capturing this data. So you noted, and I think engaging in systematic advocacy to make those changes is really needed. So yeah.
Mr. Newcomb?
Thank you. Corey Newcomb, I'm the Director of Community Planning at the town of Sidney. I was just thinking about our internal processes.
Yep.
Thinking about our internal processes. So when we get a set of plans that has 20% of the units identified as adaptable, I mean, sometimes they don't, and we have to go back to the developer and inform them that they're missing something. But generally, we get those plans, we confirm that it meets the requirements for adaptable housing in our zoning bylaw, and then it goes on process. Initially, when we get those plans, quite often the units have a bit of like an interim identification, like they might just be labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or maybe 101, 102, or A, B, C, D. Later on in the process, after the building has been approved by council, we go through a Canada Post addressing process that applies the actual official unit numbers and address that Canada Post would use and that the building that itself would use. So unit 101, 102, or whatever it might be. There's a bit of a gap because that addressing process doesn't happen until much later in the process. And so getting those numbers correct can be a bit tricky sometimes because they do change between the initial plan submission and the addressing. My question for you is, does the Right Fit program have its own form to collect information on these potential buildings? And is that something that you could provide to municipalities so you're collecting a standardized set of information that works for you? And again, thinking about our own processes, we have tasks that we check off as completed in our system, and we could potentially make a task that is fill out the Right Fit information form on the adaptable units or whatever information you want on the building, and send it off to an email that could include the developer contact info. So you could see what they provided, what the tenure is, whether it's rental or ownership, and then you could contact that builder directly and say, we see you've got these units and it's rental building, and we're interested in matching up before you put it out to market. So a form like that would be very helpful so that we could sort of, rather than guessing at the information that's required, we could just fill it out, send it off, and you could add it to your database. So just a thought there. Thanks.
Yeah, and thank you for outlining your process. So just a follow-up to that is, and I'm mindful of your time, I know you have a lot to discuss on your agenda, and I think almost deserves its own meeting really to really discuss about how we can make that work in practice. But so when you receive this, do you, when you have, let's say, 6 units that are adaptable for a specific building, you don't collect any further information? You have the addresses and then that's it, right? That's all there is in your system essentially at this point, right? Correct?
As far as the adaptable unit specific information goes, we don't even note right now. We don't note the units that
Adaptable units are
going to be within the building. We just make sure the floor plan for each adaptable unit meets the zoning bylaw requirement or space beside the bed or whatever.
Yeah.
So we don't actually record where they are in the building.
Where they are in the building. Okay, but there's a yeah. And the form that you're thinking for the Right Fit, is that essentially requiring the developers to fill out the form, so and then it's added to our inventory. That's what you're thinking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Municipals might be better positioned to fill that out, because if we're assigning addresses and you want to know what the official address of that unit is with the building, asking the developer to provide that information might be a bit of a tall task, and it also doesn't happen until much later in the process. And also municipal staff are the ones that coordinate that addressing. So it might just be easier to have a planner who's reviewing the file, fill that stuff out if it's not too complex.
Yeah. So right now, the way we work when we get word of a new building or units becoming available early on, our accessibility coordinator will make contact with the developer, and then we'll go do a site visit, an actual in-person site visit with a standardized accessibility checklist, essentially. So this is something that we fill out and we sort of we have measured the, like Lindsay mentioned, the turning radius and all these things. So it gives us a good detailed information of what this unit has to offer, and this is where it makes it to our inventory. So ideally, we would want those developers to be, as part of your process, to be required to essentially make contact with us, and to be open to having us visit the unit and record all that information. Is that something that we could do, perhaps, you think?
Well, we could certainly provide you with the developer's contact, sure.
And then we can circle back and give you access to one of the things we want to do is right now our inventory of units is really in nature more internal. It allows us to match clients according to their preferences, a number of criteria, but eventually we'd want to add a functionality which allows to provide reports of all the accessibility features of the units and what we're discovering. So and share that back with the municipalities and on the building information and all that. So yeah.
Well, I think we got a couple more questions from the community. So if we can go to those.
Yeah, I know. Lots of questions.
Hi, I'm Charlene. I'm a member of the committee. I don't know whether you're talking about rental units. Is there any way of having like private homes that may be rental homes in there? Because one of the things I've come up against with people that I know is a lot of these adaptable units that are being planned in apartment buildings or condos, they typically are 1-bedroom places. So they accommodate one person. People with disabilities have families. So they sometimes in an apartment building, they want a home, they want a suite. Is there any way of inventorying or does this just become too cumbersome to say we want, some people want homes, they don't necessarily want condominiums or anything. Is there any recourse on that?
Rental, that is such a great question. I love it. Thank you for absolutely. One of the things we find is that we have, you're so right in saying wheelchair users have families and don't just require 1-bedroom unit. This is one of our points of systematic advocacy, is that we find in those new buildings, there's a disproportionate number of 1-bedroom accessible units, which means that we're unable to place wheelchair users with family and household size where they have 2, 3, 4 children, and they require 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom. Sometimes they may be one person or 2 people. They require 2-bedroom unit to have a live-in caregiver, all sorts of things, situations. So larger units is definitely something we're after. And in terms of housing type, interestingly enough, what we found from our surveys is a lot of our wheelchair users that we place, they were previously coming from non-accessible homes with stairs and everything, but they were often like single family housing, basement suites, and then we moved them into this high-rise building, but it doesn't always work, and so we're really looking to include and diversify the housing types that we have. So we'd be definitely looking at rental homes or garden suites or private owners wanting to rent out something that they've retrofitted to make it adaptable. Absolutely. So it's not easy to identify that supply, to be honest. But if there's any way to work together to add that would be very helpful, because we we know that by doing this, we'll be able to find units that are larger in size and also will, in terms of the housing type, that will perhaps match better what our clients want actually in terms of living situations.
Thank you.
Hey, Councillor O'Keefe?
So just a couple on this last topic. So in terms of number of 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, that's something within the municipality's purview that we can, we can do that. So we say that they have to provide 20%, and we could say that that 20% has to be allocated equally or on a pro rata basis, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. So, but in the interest of moving this along, I know we could spend a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
That I'm going to try a motion here, which is that the committee recommends that the planning departments of the 3 municipalities work together to develop a process to identify adaptable and accessible units to forward to the right fit program.
Great.
Under?
Yeah, I'll second. I was just saying.
Oh, okay.
I'll second.
And I, looking to our planning folks, just kind of listening to some of, I think what Mr. Newcomb was saying in terms of what I would just see the simplest process possible would be, could perhaps add a step into our process where we give the developer the contact information to the right fit people and say, we'd like you as part of the process to contact them and tell them about your adaptable units and kind of like hand it off to them rather than staff having to have any significant role in that. So if you think that makes sense, or if you think that
Yeah, I mean, it could go either way. We could provide the developer's contact info to RightFit, RightFit's contact info to the developer. I would think the former would probably be more successful.
yeah,
Be busy, so.
okay.
contact-
I guess you could do both. Yeah, okay. Okay, so
Can I ask
Yes.
a quick question? Sorry to interrupt.
well,
When you have a
actually, the
minute.
motion-
Yes. Sorry.
That's in the
Yeah.
motion.
on the floor.
Yeah, and I think we've talked a lot about the rental side of it, but I think this is also like the market side of it. So I'm assuming when this would come forward and for consideration, that it would be for any sort of applicant that would, whether it's a carriage home or multifamily or a townhome, that whatever component is required, whether it's rental or that this is what would be reported out on, so that it.
In Sidney's case, we only require adaptable units on multi-unit residential buildings. So like carriage homes they're not required to provide any of those features. That's something we could consider in the future, but in Sidney's
Yeah,
case,
and
that's
the code's the same. It only applies to those larger multifamily buildings, not individual units like
Right. But if it was a development that came forward, and I could think of one in central Saanich where there was one, like a single family that was required to have, I think, component, but for market, that could be identified in the future. Yeah, okay.
what sort of council to a variance process required some adaptable feature.
Yeah, sure. And I would echo Councillor O'Keefe's comment that this hopefully is not a main work project for staff. And I think hearing from the 2 individuals that this is relatively simple, but I've tried to download this onto municipal staff. It's not really what I'm interested in doing.
Yeah, same.
It's not, it's more of a systems in place than municipality. I do believe absolutely what I mentioned earlier, having it at the provincial level is the best case scenario because it's a requirement.
Right.
So it's just the longevity of it. If it's built into our system, 50 different functions. a robust system in place? Is it going to continue that way? That's I think the challenge, unless it's required in legislation, right, in a bylaw, it's required.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? If not, entertain a vote then. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Sorry, do you have one more comment before you go, Isabel?
Oh, yeah, the question, and thank you for supporting this and this very incredibly useful conversation and also thoughtful questions. Really appreciate it and very inspired by the level of interest. So thank you for having us and giving this opportunity to work together. So 2 quick questions. I'm just curious about the makeup on the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. In your 20% allocation, do you actually go to the level of, yeah?
I think we forwarded the motion. I think if there's specific questions on I think getting into those details, we could discuss when our staff get the opportunity to review this.
Sure. Yeah, because I got a number of questions on allocation and things like that, but I agree. And so would that be okay for us to contact you back and then have this maybe a separate conversation, because I think we'll need to do that.
Island-based program will be more fully developed later on. We certainly invite you back, when you've got that ready to go.
Okay,
Thank you for your
perfect.
presentation.
Thank you. And yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or want to just set up a time to chat.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is accessibility plan. Has there been any changes to anybody's accessibility plans this last meeting? Seeing none. Council referrals. Don't see anything specific under there. No. Council updates, the tracking sheet. I think, yes, Councillor O'Keefe.
So I have some updates from Sidney. So on the tracking sheet talks about recommendations that have been put forward. So just some of the things that Sidney dealt with. There was the committee had a resolution about tactile markings at intersections and staff. So we brought that to staff's attention, and they note that they do conform to the master municipal construction documents for tactile markings, and they could provide a copy of that just back if we wish. Subsequent to that, in regard to the tactile markings at Beacon and Highway 17, which was discussed at the committee, council made a resolution to send a letter to the Ministry of Transportation and Transit expressing concern about the misalignment of the tactile markings. And that was sent about, I think, a month ago, and we still have had not any response. However, I understand from the community member who brought that forward that MOTT is coming out in August 6th to review the intersection in more detail with a representative from the CNIB. So we hope to hear more after that. In regards to the recommendation about the municipalities communicating to the airport authority about accessibility concerns, I think there's a letter you can see in the agenda package. So that's been covered off as well. Accessible parking awareness. We asked our staff to highlight an information campaign to the business community regarding best practices for accessible parking. So that will happen in November. And then I'll just also report that on Canada Days, in response to recommendations by this committee, the viewing areas for the fireworks and the Canada Day parade were expanded, accessible viewing areas and additional parking as well. So I think that all went well, but if there's members of the committee who participated in Canada Day in Sidney and used those accessible areas, we'd be receptive to comments on that.
Charlene, did you have a?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I didn't attend the events. I broke my leg, so I did not go anywhere. But I have heard from multiple community people that they were extremely pleased with the extra accessible viewing, the accessible parking. I've talked to many people who are thrilled about the accessible parking spot that was added by the band shell down there. So I'm starting to get a lot of feedback from other community members coming to me. They're noticing the differences and the changes, and they're really pleased with it. Garth Homer is bringing people down regularly. So I just want to say kudos to Sidney, like it is being noticed. So, and I'm planning on coming to some of the Central Saanich stuff this summer, so I'm checking it out too. Anyways, so thank you.
It's coming up pretty fast.
Yeah.
Which is a nice segue. Councillor Newton, do you have anything from Central Saanich?
Specific on the tracking sheet, no. They'll say that wasn't a council report or anything, so I'll take this opportunity for the chair to briefly say Central Saanich's 75th celebration this weekend. Hopefully we do a good job from an accessibility standpoint. It will be a very busy weekend. It will be a lot of fun. Yeah, I look forward to seeing people out walking, rolling, striding into the community. So
I did notice that their form out there says that the shuttle bus is accessible.
good.
So that we're getting out there, like this is becoming standard to put this stuff out there and let us be aware of it. So yeah, great.
Look forward to feedback.
Councillor Di Battista, anything from North Saanich? I know you've been busy with other things out there.
Yeah, we've been busy with other things. Our zoning bylaws delayed a little bit longer, so when it comes to some of those components, later in the fall. Again.
They had this off, apparently not.
But, yeah, I know it's on later in the agenda, so I can make some comments about that.
Okay, great.
When it's on the agenda.
Thank you. And that's a good point you made about no council report. I wonder if, I don't even understand what council referrals means. Is that the opportunity when council should be reporting, or is it just poorly worded? Should we change it?
No, that would have been, I didn't mean to jump in, but I think anything that came from the three councils as a referral to the committee.
Oh, I see. Right,
That's what
gotcha.
that would be.
Shouldn't we regularly have a opportunity for a council report though?
Well, that's kind of what I saw number 7 as, like council updates.
Updates, oh, including tracking sheet.
But the council referral would be something specific.
Okay,
So if council said, we want the committee to review the new active transportation plan. That would be a specific sort of item that council asked the committee.
good. I'll be up to speed just about the time I get ready to get kicked out of here. Okay, anything else on the tracking sheet? I think we covered them all. Right for program we did, Wain Road Park update. Mr. Martin, you just want to go ahead and cover that off? Or?
Yeah, I'd love to. Hi, everybody. Ben Martin, Director of Infrastructure North Saanich. Apologize if I haven't said hi to some new faces. Do I need a speaker? Is there a speaker?
We need to pass it back.
Thanks, Charlene, for the request. I did provide this email summary that I see on the agenda. So what does everybody know about Wain Park? The process, did everybody go through the webpage and does everybody understand how we got to where we are?
I did.
I went through it.
I drove out there and had a look.
It's good. There's some relevance with that. So we did have quite a robust process, and we were at the initial stages of reporting back a collection of interests in the park. That was at the council meeting that was referenced in the email. And at that council meeting, council gave direction to simply proceed with that, the entire collection. And to initiate it by May 2026, in short order, a certain section. So staff, as you can, for those of you who have gone to the park, you'll see a large concrete foundation and a steel structure off to the side for a gathering place. And staff will do the costs capacity and, or due to labor capacity and costs, staff will be completing the remainder of the section identified on the project page in the fall after our growing season. I did provide one error in my email about the paving lot for the parking lot. The plan as accepted by council did indicate that future parking lot improvements will be provided. So I did speak with our utilities, public works staff, and it's now going to be paved where I indicated it's not going to be paved.
Oh,
There'll be a
fantastic.
pathway to the
Good.
gathering place structure.
That was a real problem for me.
Yeah, me too.
So,
Since having a community gathering place, if you can't gather.
yeah, considering it's actually one of our community parks. So before the Peninsula Soccer happened at Memorial Park, that was actually quite a node for the community. We had two baseball fields.
Baseball diamonds. the tennis
We
courts.
actually bought an
Basketball.
adjacent property, unknown to most people. We bought an adjacent property because we thought we'd have more of that coming. This is well before my time. So we thought we'd have to expand tennis facilities and whatnot. And since that time, it's really transitioned. So it is still a community park, but it's really more of a neighborhood park. However, with this new vision, it's turning back into a community park. So there's going to be so many amenities there because council approved all the options. So we're going to have a trail connector, small, like a younger age kids natural play structure, water feature, a water mister. The gathering place, we're going to place about 20 plus trees in that area around the gathering place to make it more aesthetic, I suppose. We have a disc golf. So it will be a place where families will come and there'll be something for everybody. And so we'll pave the parking lot as per direction. Yesterday, the parking lot is planned to be paved with the
Great, that's
connector.
fantastic. Charlene?
Yeah, I've got questions. So my concern with this is that it's going to be an area for everybody. Without going into the detail and coming to us, will there be picnic tables that are accessible to everybody?
Yes.
Will there be parts of this part as we go on that will be accessible to everybody? Like, are we paying attention to what the pathways are made of? Are we paying attention to how do I get to that picnic table? And I bring this up in some respect because of my disappointment with Wolf Orchard. I checked it out and there's a lovely little picnic table and there's a lovely little bench on cement pads that is not accessible to somebody in a wheelchair. So it broke my heart thinking of the kids that go to Deep Coast School, because I know this was done in conjunction to be part of the school being able to access it. There's absolutely no access for a child in a wheelchair to be able to sit at a picnic table or sit next to somebody on a bench. So I just want to make sure that these things are not forgotten as we go forward, that we do pay attention to the detail in these parks, because like I said, I was pretty disappointed in seeing that. And without it coming, again, this is what we're going to make this. We're going to make it a play area. But are these areas going to consider accessibility? So that was my concern in asking questions about this is, I don't want to see it go to the level that it's completed and that's like, oh, we didn't make it accessible because we missed an opportunity here. So I just hope along the way. I mean, I follow council meetings as best as I can. I read what's going on as best as I can, but as it's been pointed out to me before, that sometimes when you see these plans that come up, they're placekeepers, they're abstract plans, but it is in the details that things get missed. So I just want to make sure that that is considered going forward on this.
Be an interesting discussion. Maybe you can discuss how that can be considered
Yeah, and
and provide other insight into the council motion that by the direction of staff.
yeah, I mean, the council motion itself, I was pretty rushed and was not anticipated to happen the way it did. That's at least my perspective. My only real comment is I'm quite thankful to our staff that they're always thinking about that stuff and they're always considering it. And this was one of those pivots that happened, partly because these communications that happen, but, yeah, the way I saw this originally playing out after this presentation was that it was going to be coming to SPAAC. These were the things that were going to be happening. The council decision is what it is. I certainly can't unwind those things now. But yeah, I'm personally trying to be much more on top of making sure our council is considering these things before they rush decisions, because that's what happened.
I took a screenshot of what you had on the website. It looked to me that if the parking lot got paved, there would be accessibility to the trail and the community gathering place over the trail surface that you're providing, which is pretty standard stuff. I think compacted gravel is relatively firm and wheelchair accessible, right?
Compacted fines, so it's like a gravel base with compacted 6 mil fines. That's right. That's what's intended in design and in the plan. The trail network.
Yeah. I think that's what we see elsewhere in the peninsula, don't we? I'm not familiar with the terms, so to me, all I need to know is it wheelchair accessible? Can a person in a wheelchair or a walker easily traverse the surface? Yes or no?
I would say that a compact, for those of you who've been around trails, it's a CRD standard. I believe it's a Central Saanich standard. It's quite a compacted surface, and it's crowned. Supposed to be crowned to shed. I would say it's better than loose gravel. It's better than the beach. It's not as good as asphalt for like a wheel surface. Like you couldn't run a scooter down it, but you could run a larger wheeled unit of that.
Councillor Newton, I think, was next, and then Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. Instead of weighing in and other people's jurisdictions, the only comment I'll have is previous member committee, commented about how good the gravel surface trail was that Central Saanich had along Stellies. And again, like you, Chair, I'm not familiar with what a 6 mil aggregate is. That's the standard, and that's great. I would, for whatever voice this committee has to say that, at minimum, so that is able to be used, I think is essential. I'll leave it at that.
Councillor O'Keefe.
Thanks. So I think the way I thought things were going in the municipalities is that when things were being considered, like, this, that the first thing would be come to SPAAC. And like, for example, I really appreciated Central Saanich when they were redoing their parks. And so they came to the committee first of all and said, hey, we're doing our big parks, thing. And we want to get some general comments on things we need to think about. And then the commitment from them that they will come back every time that they're looking at a park to say, this is what we plan for the park. Same with Sidney, when we did our active transportation plan, there was certainly a lot of community engagement on that. And there's lots of opportunities to participate. But the point of SPAAC is that councils and staff make a concerted effort not to just depend on that general sort of engagement, but that we factor into our engagement process reaching out to SPAAC specifically. So, and what I'm hearing from a couple members here is that, maybe more could have been done that way. And hearing from Councillor Di Battista, he thought it was coming to SPAAC. In staff's defense, staff, present something, and unless council directs them to do anything else, they're going to go and do whatever staff or council directs them to do. So, if committee members thought that they want to have a better look at this plan, you have the option to make a recommendation to North Saanich Council that the plans for Wain Road Park be presented to SPAAC for review and comment. And so then you could make whatever formal suggestions you have that could go back. And sometimes there's cost implications, and in defense of staff, whether it's a gravel trail or whatever, or there's no accessible playground features, those are things that cost a lot more money. Yeah. And so Staff are always looking at what's the most cost-effective way of doing things. But if the committee puts forward certain things, they say this is important, and then staff can say, well, we could do that, but it's going to cost an extra $100,000. And that's what happened in Sidney with Breathitt Park, is that initially there wasn't going to be a lot of accessibility there. And the committee said, no, we want that. And so it ended up costing, and I think it was another $100,000 to include the playground surface and some other things, but at least it gives
Thanks for
council.
your donation.
At least it gives council the opportunity to, weigh in on that. So that's an option you have if you want to make a motion to North Saanich to, ask staff to review the plans with SPAAC and ask for their review and comment.
I think we have time now, right?
Just to the point, that's actually what happened with Jubilee Park prior to Breathitt Park,
Right.
Yes.
right? That's exactly how that played out.
Yeah.
This did not play out that way, and I'll keep my personal comments rationale for that, probably myself.
And basically, we want to be partners, not policemen, right?
Yeah, and so it was, there was certain motivations for this to be rushed the way it was, so it's highly unfortunate that it played out this way, because it didn't previously with Jubilee Park.
So it seems like there's time to bring it back one more time before you get flying in the ball, no?
Well, I mean,
It's-
you could,
It's already been approved by council.
Yeah,
As is.
so.
Yeah.
A portion is being completed as per the
Yeah.
image on the page.
Mhm.
The remainder of the park staff couldn't conceivably complete it. The time allowed. So there's a structure going, trees being planted, and the parking lot being paved, some split rail fencing, irrigation for the trees, and the start of that trail network. If there's a motion from this committee to consider paving the trail, start adding, or consider coming back, the remainder of the park will be constructed 2027. That's in the capital plan. So there is an opportunity to bring, obviously, what's already set in motion is happening. But there's nothing to say that we couldn't come back and say, okay, 2027, the remainder of the park's being done. We're interested in some additional features.
also always have opportunity to revisit past decisions if they so choose as well.
Do you want to make a motion? Sure.
So, yeah, I think we make a motion to have the next planning phase of Wain Road to be presented to SPAAC.
Might be, assuming that it makes it into the capital list, sometimes things are moved. If it remains in the capital plan for 2027, and it would come before this committee first.
So
So,
I think the motion
Is there, you're waiting to say something?
There's a motion on the floor, so I'll, sorry.
and just to help out, I think the recommendation would be that SPAAC recommends the district or Saanich present to SPAAC the remainder of the work plan for balance of works to be done at Wain at a future meeting. And I think that's the opportunity to, provide some input and provide some thought, because the rest of that work isn't going to be done yet, and it gives them an opportunity to come back. Albeit the first half is too little too late, but at least the second.
You okay with that wording?
yeah, I'm okay with that wording. Did you catch that for me?
Anybody anybody attending virtually? We need a seconder, right? Or do we have one? We need a seconder, I think.
Can I second?
Okay, yeah.
I'll second it.
Well, I was just hoping with some
Oh,
work.
okay, so I'm okay, so I'm doing it. Worded it.
I'll happily second them.
Okay, yeah,
Okay, great.
thank you.
We have multiple seconders. Any discussion from all you quiet folks on the screen there that I'm looking at? Janelle and company? Nope.
No, I just really appreciate this, and I'll just make a comment. I appreciate Charlene bringing up about children, because this is one thing that it's difficult for our family is we see accessible places for children, but that doesn't mean that the activities that are included are accessible. So I appreciate the opportunity to hear this and
Councillor Keith.
It's an opportunity for, the member of council that's gonna bring this motion forward to their council as just a reminder of maybe previous process, your normal process of what you did at Jubilee Park, which seemed to be really good. And I think what the committee, members of the committee were pointing out today is disappointment that there wasn't that consultation for Wain Road Park, as there had been in the past. So.
And Councillor Newton, and then I think we should bring the question.
Issue is still around the process on this about how it's coming. So but weighing into each local government's sort of governance and their processes, I struggle with this being outside. I appreciate the advocacy side of what this committee is, jumping up and down and doing. How this is coming through the process, I struggle with a little bit, just from what's involved. I absolutely agree that this should have come forward, as Councillor Keith referenced. What you guys did in Jubilee Park was great.
Do you have another suggestion on how we can get it back on board?
No, I don't have another suggestion because I think this committee should review it, but my struggle is with how it's coming back forward through the process.
Yeah, understood. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Against? Carried.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thank you for your
Can
help with that.
I just say,
Yes.
are we able to do the accessible parking before Ben goes? Or
Oh, just because,
of
Mr.
Ben
Bonds.
being, yeah.
Sure. That's okay with you?
Yes. Or I mean, sorry, I was gonna say that there's a reason for my departure. I'd
Yeah.
love to stay. I've got,
Okay.
If the accessible parking is related to the zoning bylaw, so I'll be able to.
Okay, okay.
Off you go.
nice to see everybody.
Yes, you too. Okay, accessibility at Mary Winspear Center.
Okay, that's coming to me again. Quite some time ago, it was brought up that Mary Winspear would like input from the committee on accessibility issues at Mary Winspear. Somehow that got dropped and nothing ever happened. I have been talking with Denny Warner from Mary Winspear, and she's very interested in our committee helping with any kind of accessibility information notes. She did say, this didn't print out very well, that she was looking for some assistance regarding accessibility for the center, accessibility with washrooms, signage, parking, or any other sensory issues, any kind of issues that we could do. She was not able to make this meeting today, but wanted to know if our committee would be in a position that we could maybe help out, do an audit, meet with her, whatever. And I just wanted to, I certainly have got my ideas of what I'd like to see at Mary Winspear. Laughing at me because he can figure those out. But I think we all bring our expertise on this committee to that, and to see Mary Winspear and the community tackle some of these accessibility issues. So I just wanted to know whether that's something that other members of the committee would be willing to work on with us.
Certainly I would.
I know I certainly, yeah.
Councillor O'Keefe.
So my suggestion would be for Ms. Warner to make a formal request to SPAAC, either, to appear at a meeting in the future if she wasn't available today, just to, maybe send some questions in advance, or if she's looking for an on-site sort of thing, to send, a formal request to SPAAC outlining what are the things they want feedback on. and then SPAAC can respond at that time.
Okay. Are you comfortable writing that?
Yeah, so would the formal request come to SPAC, or does it have to go through council to come to SPAC? Process. I want to know what the process is.
I think that's where we have a gray area.
Yeah.
What this committee's role is,
Yes.
and without a doubt, providing some guidance and input. But I'd be curious what our terms of reference state about who we can invite in to request input from the wealth of knowledge in this room about how that works. And not to say that I don't think that there's some great input that could be provided, but it's just, I think this role of the committee is still from the local government side of things on how that comes forward.
Councillor Key.
I guess what I would say, I think the terms of reference talk about, education sort of the broader community. Certainly there's a role in providing direct feedback to the local governments. But I'm recollecting, although I can't remember who, other organizations that have come here for feedback on different things that haven't necessarily gone through our process.
Yeah, the airport and the Panorama Center.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. So,
Peninsula festivities.
oh, yeah, Peninsula celebrations. They're a community group that provides.
Maybe I'll have to refresh my memory about what.
Yeah.
Make sure that, yeah, that's fine.
Well, and that was my question with this, is this something that comes formally to us, or do we just individually say, okay, we're meeting with you, Denny?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's another way of doing it.
So,
Although I think it would be good to have kind of an official SPAC presence, because Sidney and North Saanich anyways contribute significantly to Mary Winspear Center.
Yeah.
And I think we have kind of a real interest, I would think, of ensuring that the municipal facilities that we support financially, that there's some concern about accessibility there, and it would be of interest.
Plus, we have a breadth of experience on the committee that would be different than just Charlene and I going, for example. We want to consider all of the whole community, not just the mobility challenge community.
So looking at this from the reference does say that committee identified barriers for persons with disabilities in the community and recommends solutions for consideration by the Saanich Peninsula local governments, as well as bringing sharing information with other committees and organizations for disabilities.
So maybe we can co-write a letter, send it off, and we'll
Okay.
get some feedback.
okay,
Yeah, then, yeah.
okay, that works. Thank you.
All right, now we're on to item D, Sidney wayfinding markings. We talked about this a couple of meetings ago, and I think Mr. Welland was kind enough to offer his observations, so thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I've used the term wayfinding and in other conversations, people have talked about tactile markings. They're the same thing. And whether the tactile feature be grooves in the concrete or twizzies, that's really what I was looking at. And so I conducted an audit between April 25th and May 7th of this year. Both on my own and with my partner, who is totally blind. What we did is took kind of a grid approach and went from Highway 17 and Beacon Avenue all the way over to First Street and the waterfront, the pier, from Bevan, Beacon, James White, and Sidney. And then went a little bit beyond that to Henry Avenue as well, and also to Mill Road and Rest Haven. So I made notes of what I was seeing there, and I also took photographs of many of the features on the concrete. So briefly, the findings were that. So in terms of the way that I did this, I looked at a corner as being 4 corners, right? So an intersection has 4 corners. So I looked at what's going on in the northeast, the northwest, southeast, southwest, whatever. And so in terms of the numbering, that's where that's coming from. So there are 54 corners in that grid that I just described that have no markings at all. Anywhere that there's cobblestone, at least that's what I'm calling it, the cobblestones, there are no markings of any sort. The other feature that I noticed is that where there are grooves in the concrete that are meant to be tactile markings, there is little consistency in the way that those markings are displayed. So I found that there were 20 corners where the grooves parallel the road, and there are 19 corners where it's the opposite way. There are also at least 5 corners which are newer and have grooves at right angles. Right? And so, excuse me just a moment. Yeah, so one of the features that I noticed was that there are corners where there are maybe 3 sections to grooves. So that there is a section that has grooves that are parallel to say this road, the one that's going north-south, and then grooves that are parallel to the east-west road. But then there's another set that are in between that. So although we have Sidney Council who have reached out to the Ministry of Transportation with concerns about the Highway 17 and Beacon Avenue intersection, where these grooves and twizzies are misaligned, Sidney has its own problems in the sense that wherever these arcs or 3-section grooves are, you have the potential to lead someone who is blind right into the middle of traffic, going basically kitty corner. So although I agree that the Ministry of Transportation needs to get its act together, so does Sidney. The only corners with twizzies, which are the tactile markings, the yellow plastic ones, is at that Highway 17 and Beacon intersection. I'm not saying that's the only ones, that's not necessarily the only ones in all of Sidney, but within the large grid that I talked about, there are no other ones. The other thing about those twizzies is that they're not directional twizzies. They're only warning twizzies. Mm-hmm. So they can't necessarily direct the user in any particular direction. The grooves can. And what I discovered as a sighted person is that it's very easy to basically, as a sighted person, to kind of line up the grooves, if you're looking at the ones that are going to be parallel to the walkway, to the crosswalk lines, you can basically line those up by your eye and go, oh yeah, okay, that works. But the problem is that if you're blind, you're not using your eyes to line up to the crosswalk. You're going by whatever direction those grooves are directing you to basically for you to, they're directing you to go in a certain direction. And as I've said, in some cases that is directing the person into the flow of traffic. The other thing that I noticed is that both the on and off ramps to Highway 17 have crosswalks. But there's no control of traffic there. So somebody who's blind who wants to go across this, let's say the off ramp, they are not going to be able to know whether there's traffic coming to go onto Beacon. The other thing is that is also true of all of the crosswalks that are on Beacon, that go across Beacon. There's no traffic control there. There's no, and in addition, there are no markings for those particular crosswalks. And the same is true of the traffic circle at First and Beacon. There were no markings and there's no traffic control there. Now, when you look at, yeah, let me say this first. When you look at the two traffic control crosswalks that I looked at, they have warning lights for traffic, but they don't have sound. So the one that's most concerning, I think, is the one at Mill Road and Rest Haven, where it's just south of that intersection. So it's at the Shoal Center. The other thing about that particular crosswalk is that the traffic does not always heed the crosswalk warning lights. This has been reported to me, but I also observed it when I was doing my audit and standing there. There were a number of vehicles that just went right through there. And that's particularly concerning. Another feature that I looked at was the directional posts on Beacon Avenue. These are the ones that direct people to where businesses are. None of those posts are accessible to the blind or people with low vision. What they would probably need is raised lettering and braille. They have neither. I also looked at access to Glass Beach, which is not particularly accessible to blind or people with low vision. In fact, it could be potentially quite dangerous for them. There are railings that go down the stairs that lead down to the beach. There is a concrete platform at the end of those stairs with no railing. So if a person who's blind was able to manage to get down that far, they would quite easily walk off of the concrete and onto the rocks or the sand. I know that goes a little bit beyond, wayfinding markings, but in terms of the railings and such, but there also are no tactile markings anywhere around those stairs to warn someone that there are indeed stairs there. And I think that's about it.
Great, thanks very much. That was a pretty comprehensive tour around Sydney. Any questions of Mr. Wellen? Charlene?
Thanks for doing that, Richard. I've certainly, since being on this committee and having had Vanessa on the committee, I've paid more attention to crosswalks than ever I did, because I only looked at, could I get on them with my wheelchair? And now I'm looking at them in a whole different light. Like so those rounded ones that you're talking about, that sends them into any direction.
Mhm.
They work great for me, but they are a nightmare for a low vision and blind person. And I bring this up because you did a great comprehensive study of Sidney. North Saanich is looking at, I know they brought up redoing the walkway along East Saanich Road between McTavish and the roundabout at the airport. And they also put in a crosswalk on the top of Dean Park Road, and they put one of those corners in. It's a nightmare for a low vision person. So again, I think it's that we start paying attention as we're doing some of these changes and developments, that there's got to be more consistency in how we're doing it. And so I am now finding that I'm driving around looking at crosswalks and curb cuts, and you're right, and this is part of progressing as we learn more and do more. That we are getting better with directional ones. So I think we need to find a consistency so that people know. And again, as a tri-municipal committee, and I'm somebody who very rarely leaves the peninsula. So to have a standard that works Central Saanich, North Saanich, and Sidney, so that we have got a standard, just makes it easier for everybody who's trying to navigate their world. So thank you for doing all of that. It's something I've been paying more attention to as well.
Councillor Newton?
Yeah, certainly, I think all of these communities have known about where their deficiencies are from work that's been done. I think going forward is what we're really trying to look at. So I guess my question, the controlled intersections, whether it's walk signals or crosswalks, do we have, look at that? This, probably the wrong persons are here with engineering, but is there like a difference between a controlled signaled and then a signal with the auditory component to it? That would be a standard to use when we look at going forward, but they're cost perspective, probably not much different. Yeah, I could. Sorry. Yeah.
Picking up on that theme, if you don't mind. So the ones that were more recently done in Sydney, it's a new standard, I presume. They, as a lay person, they seem to be appropriately done with the markings heading into the crosswalk, regardless of the controlled crossing. They seem to be appropriate, because I think what happens is you're supposed to put your cane in the groove and follow that groove to the path of travel, right?
That's my impression as to the way it's supposed to work. There are certainly problems inherent in that system, which I'd be happy to talk about. I think for a cane user who is not used to that, and particularly if you're using your cane and going about Sydney,
yeah, right,
and running into the inconsistencies, you then, I think, become unclear as to which direction am I supposed to be following here. But I think from a structural point of view, the problem with the grooving in the sidewalks is that they fill with debris. They also are more expensive, I would think, to change. Whereas if you put down the Twizy, you can unscrew it and move it somewhere else or rearrange it or whatever. You can't do that with concrete grooves. You have to break up the concrete and redo the whole thing. That's got to be more costly. And as I said, if the grooves are filling with debris, then they lose their their use.
That's okay.
Thank you. I'm also thinking about, how we move forward on this.
Yes.
I mean, I know it's something that's come up in the past. But what I don't know is whether there's a plan to address these things. Like, for example, I know that when Vanessa was here, we had discussions about the scoring lines, and initially staff's response was, there's a standard that we follow. What we ended up finding out is that, yeah, there's a standard, but how it was actually being constructed was being misunderstood. And so I think there is now that understanding. And so the intersections on Beacon, the new ones that they've done, all seem good. But there's these ones throughout the community that are, and I see them, there's a lot of them. And I don't know whether staff are aware of those. And I don't know that there's a plan to correct those. So
I'm also interested in Charlene's comment about standardization, because I know that Central Saanich is going to make a heck of a lot of improvements too along Mount Newton, et cetera. And they'll want to be incorporating some of those ideas, I'm sure.
yeah, well, and from what I understand previously from staff is there is that municipal standard for accessibility that they follow. But, where we sometimes miss the mark, and that's where they miss the mark with Ministry of Transportation, is that, you get contractors in to do the work that don't necessarily are very familiar with it. And so they don't implement the standard accurately. So what I'm struggling with is, whether there's a way to, Richard, to, put all of what you've got there into like a kind of a report or in writing with the pictures, so that we could, whether that would be useful for staff. Mr. Newcomb, or any thoughts he might have on best ways.
I'm just drafting an email for Director of Engineering, just highlighting this discussion. With him, and it was the engineering tech who designed our current standard for those coordinates. They can listen to this discussion and give it some thought in terms of maybe taking a second look at that standard, some of the concerns that you've raised, or it's also come up with the highway intersection, obviously, and some of the drawbacks of that approach. Maybe there's no solution. Anyway, I will raise it with them. Say that they can make a resolution.
Yeah, so I think I'm feeling there should be some sort of resolution, but I'm just struggling about what the recommendation might be.
The other option might be to gather more information from staff, like having, possibly someone from engineering come and present on what our approach has been to date. I don't know that that's been done because when it's developed.
You know what? I like that idea, because then at least engineering can tell us what they actually are doing, and maybe they do have a plan, rather than the committee making a recommendation that is kind of, moot because staff already know. So maybe the motion could be that we ask engineering staff from the municipalities to attend the next SPAAC meeting to talk about accessibility at intersections. Sorry?
You're asking the councils if they'll send their staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Great.
Yeah, okay.
Great. Moving on.
Good. Okay, good.
Thanks again, Richard.
Thank you.
Welcome. I think we had a letter to the airport authority, which seems self-explanatory.
Yeah.
I I just wanted to mention that and it's posted here, the Island Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center was closed rather suddenly. They ran out of money and their government's contract expired a couple of years ago, but they ran out of money like at June 30th, and there was very little notice given to anybody, so that the deaf and hard of hearing community are really struggling because that was their go-to spot for all things, you know, for social activity, for getting informational resources, for figuring out what to do with their children's education, all those things. And so I just raise it so that people can think about what we might be able to do for our deaf and hard of hearing people in our community. Perhaps Beacon Community Services or the Shoal Center could be at least a meeting place for people. You might want to run that up the flagpole and see where it goes. Yeah, so I'm going to, unfortunately, those people from the Disability Alliance of BC had to leave, but I'll follow up with them as well to see if they can offer some assistance. Okay. Any more thoughts on that? That's right.
Yeah. I'll work on the Shoal Center, but I think that's a detail that could probably considered anyways. Resource for maybe space.
Yeah, much like the White Cane Club, at least the people had a chance to go there. I think they go there and they play cards or they exchange stories or information, much like I'm sure the White Cane Club does. So it'd be ideal, I think. Okay, and then we have one letter, which I don't think was really accessibility oriented, but it's there for information.
Can we do my accessible parking thing?
Yes, did I fly by that? Oh yeah, you were gonna, because Councillor DPD is gonna.
Okay.
Yes, go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah. So I just wanted to bring up and again, I realize that North Saanich is busy. They've got all sorts of stuff going on. Part of the, just a bit of a background, in 2018, the province took accessible parking out of the building code. And it was up to every municipality, city, whatever, to come up with their own accessible parking standards. We started working with Sidney, North Saanich and Central Saanich and came up with accessibility plans that were kind of the best case scenario. At the time, North Saanich put one through that they followed the FSCA B651, which was the Canadian standard, which we then found out was not optimal. But at that time, North Saanich was putting it through with other bylaw changes, and they were going to said, no problem, we'll just push this through. When we do the OCP, we will improve on that. That was 2019. So we hit the pandemic, we hit new council, we hit new planners. Nothing got changed. We now have, we're going into another election cycle. There's this draft zoning bylaw has been put forward, and I did see that in the draft zoning bylaw, the accessible parking is under 404 in the bylaw, and they have just said that they are going to use the SCA B651 standard again, which again is not the acceptable standard. Last July at the SPAAC meeting, we were told that North Saanich would harmonize with Central Saanich and Sidney's accessible parking. So the reason I bring this up now is because like the expediency that Wain Road was put through, the neglect to bring Wolf Orchard to us, I want to make sure that this draft zoning bylaw doesn't get approved with this accessible parking standard. So I don't know whether it's something that, do I bring up a recommendation that this accessibility zoning bylaw is not accepted without bringing it to SPAAC for our input? Because as things stand right now, North Saanich does not have an accessible parking standard that allows me to park anywhere with my side wrap van. Sandown Center was a missed opportunity. I don't go there because there's no parking for me. The Roost just redid their accessible parking at their place. Does not have parking for me. So we've missed an opportunity in this 8 years that we've been not doing anything with the accessible parking at North Saanich. We've missed opportunities. And as we all know, once they've been done according to whatever the bylaw was when they built it, that's what stands. So I just wanted to, I don't know, going forward, I want to make sure we don't miss an opportunity with North Saanich.
So Councillor DiBattista, what is it you need from us to make that happen?
I mean, I think like other things that, you know, I think we were getting to a really good place where we were just expecting, you know, like Central Saanich, where they just automatically come. That hasn't been happening from us. So I think, you know, if SPAAC makes a recommendation requesting that the zoning bylaw be presented, and even in that motion, at a, you know, and I missed writing down the exact.
And that it be harmonized with the other two municipalities.
Right, and that can either come up out of that presentation and conversation, or that can just come up as part of the recommendation. Either of those are okay.
Councillor O'Keefe.
Just looking to Mr. Newcomb and from Central Saanich. So I think we have harmonized, like between Sidney and Central Saanich. Have we harmonized our accessible parking? Is it?
I believe it's similar.
Yeah. Okay.
Charlene, there's present place there. City.
I think council made a change or two right before it was adopted.
Okay.
It's,
Okay. So I guess one way of going at, so there's something specific that you've identified. So we could make a motion that North Saanich change the zoning bylaw, or section blah, blah, blah of the zoning bylaw related to whatever that section, you know, that standard was, or just say that instead of adopting that standard, that North Saanich adopt the accessible parking standards, or harmonize their accessible parking standards with Sidney and Central Saanich.
What was mentioned to me is, I think where North Saanich was having a bit of a problem, and it was told to me that they're different because they're rural. I think where they didn't want to harmonize with Sidney and Central Saanich was in the ratio of parking spaces and accessible spaces, which to me, figure out your ratios for your building, whatever, with your parking. But don't skimp on the actual size of your parking. Right?
So I'm not sure why that would be. I mean, if you're going to have a grocery store, whether it's in a rural area or
Exactly.
like Sandown is like a shopping. And
So I just, again, so I don't know how, my impetus in bringing this is I just wanted to make sure that this wouldn't progress any further without it being looked at, and made sure that we're doing it in the best possible way. So to make a recommendation that SPAAC recommends that North Saanich not proceed with their with the draft zoning bylaw accessible parking portion until they present it to SPAAC for.
It might be short. It might be a shorter route to do what Councillor.
Yeah. So what I was, just to finish my thought that kind of ran.
And it must have been good because Anna actually typed it.
To make the specific recommendation to harmonize their accessible parking with Sidney and Central Saanich. Make that one.
Okay.
And then if you thought that there was other elements of the zoning bylaw that were relevant, there's a whole pile of stuff in the zoning bylaw you don't want to be bothered. But if there was parts of that you thought should come to SPAAC, then you could make a second recommendation that sections, you know, that the rest of the bylaw be referred to SPAAC for additional review and comment from an accessibility perspective. So, but I don't know what is in their zoning bylaw and whether you have anything besides parking.
I mean, it was all I could do to zone in on the draft bylaw and find the accessible parking. So, yeah, or, whoops, sorry.
Councillor.
A standard. You see one that we think is preferred or superior, you're shaking your head no.
We don't have a BC one.
That's what this whole, the discussion came about a few years ago, because there used to be provincial standard.
Right.
And then the province said, we're not gonna do that anymore. You municipalities decide what's best for you. And so that's why there was all this kerfuffle in past meetings about, okay, we were all doing different standards and had different ideas in our municipality. And so hence the desire for, Sidney and North, Central Saanich did that.
And do you mind reading back what Councillor Keefe said initially? And maybe it's good enough for.
Yes.
Purposes.
That North Saanich terminals are accessible parking standards to Sidney and Central Saanich.
And should we add, before considering passing the
Well, I
Zoning
think
bylaw?
there's two separate things. One is very specific to parking, but the other is accessibility as it pertains to the entire zoning bylaw.
Yes,
Accessibility is not just limited to parking.
yes.
And so that's why I would suggest that the motion not be, the recommendation, council can.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But I think if the motion requests that the zoning bylaw be presented, just like the other municipalities have, so that we can provide feedback, so that SPAAC can provide feedback on all accessibility components within the zoning bylaw. Then the report is not the entire zoning bylaw, it's everything that's related to accessibility. And that way, the report can be better, the PowerPoint can be done up, and then it comes. Now, I don't even have a timeline from staff yet as to when we're gonna see zoning bylaw again. Okay. So based on that, I can suspect that it's gonna be a little while, but we've all seen what's happened previously. So if there wants to be something a little more specific, as far as not to go to second reading until it's come to SPAAC, that can certainly be done. But I just don't know what the timeline is. I think it's important that just like what Central Saanich did with theirs, it actually comes from accessibility, like just those components come to SPAAC.
Go for it,
I
yes.
just wanted to add a little staff perspective on that motion. It's very broad. There was a comment earlier about the number of spaces versus, maybe the geometric considerations. So you might want to think about specificity there, because I agree that, the number of spaces required might be very different in North Saanich and more rural context than it would be in Sidney, for example.
Yes.
And so are you asking for them to organize the number of required spaces? The motion might apply that, it's very broad. So,
Yeah, again, my thinking on that was, again, I know my only perspective I had with North Saanich and the numbers was Sandown, and they did ask for a variance to change the numbers. I think both Central Saanich and Sidney both say that no matter what the figuring out number was, they couldn't adapt the accessible ones. They couldn't change the accessible ones according to plan. So I know for myself, yes, they might be smaller numbers or whatever. So I don't necessarily know that it get into the weeds of how many spaces there have to be, but I definitely think we need to make sure that we're putting in accessible spaces that work
I think
for.
we need to get to the motion and get it done, or we're gonna miss.
Get it done. Okay.
Is
Okay.
the standard that you talked about, was that the standard? My recollection, it was in regards to what the spaces look like,
Yes.
right? And so how wide they would be, accessible aisles, that sort of thing. So I think maybe that's what you wanna, to Mr. Newcomb's point, that the specificity.
I was just worried about the being.
Yeah.
That's, if it's too broad.
So the way to get about that might be, I'm really gonna have to leave because I've got somebody showing up in my house at 10 minutes. But would be to adjust the motion to say, for North Saanich to amend or in consideration of their zoning bylaw, instead of using standard blah, blah, blah.
CSAB 6.
Use the standard, harmonize that with Sidney and North Saanich, because that doesn't get into the number of spaces. That only relates to the width of the space, the accessible aisles, how they're marked and identified. So maybe that's the way around that. And then the number of spots, that's a whole other
Okay.
thing.
Can you read off the standard number again for N?
CSA B651.
Okay, we have a motion. Seconder? Mr. Welland? Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Good. We lost all of our people on there.
I think, just to chime in, I know everybody's got to go with the last minute, but I think Batista's comment about having the zoning bylaw come back for comment.
Oh, yeah, another motion. That's a good
Could be
idea.
Lost
Oh, yeah.
somewhere on that, whether it
Okay.
comes from
Will you make,
Bill at council or what, but
make the motion?
sure, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I
The
can say.
SPAAC recommends that the District of North Saanich present the accessibility portions of the zoning bylaw to SPAAC prior to adoption.
Or just say refer the zoning
Yes.
bylaw. Don't say the accessibility, because
They may
they will
not
make
decide something.
assumptions about, so.
That's why you say the accessibility component, because you don't want to sit here and read 400 pages of a zoning bylaw.
I like
You want the components that are related to accessibility.
And refer, not present.
Yeah,
referred, yeah.
okay.
Seconder? I guess, okay, Charlene. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And motion for adjournment?
Yeah,
Lots of people.
We gotta go.
We're out of here.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you.